video talking about the weird world that we are living in at the moment, I thought it was probably essential to come out with a bit of a short video on mental skills for athletes dealing with the coronavirus at the moment. Been doing sessions all week talking with people about how they can basically mentally manage it. And so, yeah.
Hard to escape. It's everyone. Yeah. It's everyone's world right now.
Everyone's getting their competitions cancelled, and there's a lot of mental kind of spin-off effects of all that, which are affecting athletes. So let's get into it. What's your feeling and vibe on all this at the moment for athletes around the world?
Yeah, well, so the reality is that a lot of us are facing months of uncertainty, and it's not entirely sure how it's all going to turn out. And so that's going to create a lot of emotions. With uncertainty, you have anxiety and maybe depression and feeling confused, feeling lost. So I think everyone at the moment is just experiencing a lot of really heavy emotions. So I'd say that's a pretty normal state of being right now. That's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. So my first kind of big blast of it with athletes was I was flying back from Sydney, doing some work in Sydney, and came back, and I didn't get in till like 9:30 at night, and I had a swimmer text me and just say, "Hey Matt, I really need to talk with you. Nationals has been cancelled. I'm in an absolute mess."
Yeah.
So, if that's happening for one person, it's happening for lots of people out there. All right. So let's give people, first of all, 3 points of understanding about this. I think the first one that we need to do is when anything mentally tough happens, it seems to be better for us if we can address it mentally. Like if we've got some time of mental preparation, you've got a tough day coming up tomorrow or something, your mind kind of starts preparing for it. Just like if you were to get hit physically, if you're prepared to take that blow, you cope with it better. So first point of understanding is let's address it, that we've got months of uncertainty coming up, if not more, and just prepare our mind for it, prepare the garden of our mind. Yep. Thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And similar to a video we talked about previously on being able to observe yourself, I think it's also a really good time for that. And so maybe instead of saying, I'm really depressed right now, or I'm really anxious right now, try and turn on that observer and say, I am feeling a lot of depression, or I am feeling a lot of anxiety. So it's so like you don't identify with these feelings. We're all experiencing them, but that doesn't mean that I am depression. So just try and use it also as a time to turn that observer on and notice these feelings as they're hitting you.
Yeah, keep your identity strong with who you are, and separate your feelings from some of that core psychology that you've done all the good work on over the years. Look, while we're on the topic of emotion, I mean, you and I talked about this before we got on, but it's pretty natural as well for people to experience emotion around this stuff. And a lot of people don't get this right. They don't allow themselves to feel kind of like negative emotion. So, being okay with, first of all, realizing that something has been taken away from you. Like, you've been training your butt off for whatever it is for months now, if not years. And suddenly it's like gone. So that's, in the world of anything, that's a loss, right? So if you were a 4 or 5 year old or an 8 or 9 year old child, when something like that happens, what do? You have a tantrum. Okay. Yeah. Now, when you're 20 or 30 or 40, you have less tantrums, hopefully, as you go on through life, but still there's an emotional blow and it needs to be processed. So if you're like if you're a 15-year-old kid, I reckon you're halfway in the middle there, and you're probably going to have, and this is for parents as well, you're probably going to have some little emotional storms to deal with because of the loss.
For sure. Just part of being a human. You'll go through stages of, shock, anger, depression, sadness. Or
So
like
how
the
should
whole,
athletes process that? How should it look at home? How should it look at, say, school? How should it look at work? Give us some thoughts on how they should kind of package that for themselves.
yeah, it's a super tough one. And I think one of the things that we've talked about as well is sometimes we can't choose the situation we're in and what we're going through, but we can always come back to choose the attitude that we'll take towards it.
Yep.
So I think maybe having an attitude that you're going to sort of suffer bravely through all of this and try and see yourself as almost like a role model. Like you wanted to say, oh, wow, Matt really handled it well this stage of our history, this stage of, or any athlete. And you could sort of say, wow, he's I guess, taking everything that's coming on board, taking the right precautions, and is like, really handling it well. And I think you want to be able to say in the future, I'm quite proud of myself and how I went through all these uncertain times. So I think having an attitude where you work towards that would really be helpful for athletes as they go through this.
Spot on. Yeah. Now, look, last point of understanding we wanted to talk about was viewing this as a growth opportunity. Okay. Now, look, I had a session with an injured athlete the other day, and they didn't fully appreciate that this was a great opportunity for them. I mean, normally they were going to be out for 2 or 3 months anyway.
Yep.
Okay. And for them, this is going to be a great time to heal, to repair, to work on different aspects of their sport. So you're going to miss that opportunity if you don't mentally switch on your awareness to see it as that. And if you just keep looking at, the big brunt of the social media, which is going to be telling you how intense things are each day.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's, you don't want to stick your head in the sand and ignore it. But, yeah, what do you think about viewing this as a growth opportunity for some athletes?
Absolutely. So I think in every setback and challenging time we have, there's always opportunities for growth. And it would seem how the situation's being handled at the moment is through isolation and staying at home. And so that means you're going to have a lot of time on your hands with yourself or with close family. So what does that mean? So that means you've got a lot of time. So you could potentially look at that as an opportunity to like read more, listen to more podcasts, develop your mind, develop your skill sets. There's so much more that you could learn, which could make you a much better athlete in the future. Not potentially not physically, you're not going to be competing, but you can work on your mind. Almost, you've got this huge resource now. All of us are going to have this massive amount of time. So there's always an opportunity for growth, especially in these really heavy times that we're in.
Might even just mean having a chance to actually rest and recover more as well. But yeah, I'm all for what you're suggesting of learning new skills, working on different things. And I've seen it before with athletes where they've been through like a 6-month injury period. They've worked on these different aspects. They've come out of it the other side stronger than what they ever would have been in certain areas. And then when they catch up the speed on all the other aspects, they're ahead of the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they've had an opportunity to work on angles that other athletes just don't normally do.
Yeah, I think we can sort of create like our little world or our little environment to be as productive or unproductive as we want. You could just end up subscribing to every Netflix TV series and just not doing a whole lot. That's fine. You got to have your relaxing time as well. But you could also say, all right, so I'm not training 40 hours a week now. What else could I be doing that's still going to make me the best athlete I can be?
Now, when you're in your own business, you have to do this every day. You have to set your own schedule. So for athletes out there who suddenly have all this time now, you have to develop the skill quickly of setting your own schedule, getting your priorities in at the start of the day. Otherwise, you might find yourself, halfway through the day and you just go, that was some good Netflix this morning. What do I do with the rest of the afternoon?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, that as well, a great chance to practice like self-discipline. creating it like you might not have your coach or your team dictating what you do for the day. So now it's on you. You're the captain of the ship. What are you going to do with your day? What are you going to do with your time?
Yeah.
Are you going to become better from this, or just kind of let the time pass without utilizing it?
A good term we like to talk about is being the CEO of your own organization. All right. I think I heard that from the McGrath guy who does the real estate. I thought it was a beautiful line. So you can give him the royalties. He's probably not short of cash anyway. But look, just wrapping up a couple of tips and strategies so that people can take and put it into action. We always believe that good ideas need to be put into action. So tip number one was basically around that role model. Just kind of flesh that out for people so it's in a nice kind of practical manner for them.
Yeah, so I guess creating an image or the type of person that you want to be and how you want to interact with the world in this time, and then live into that so you can be proud of it. So you're not going to be someone that creates additional anxiety for other people or is constantly you want to be like the calmest person on the ship possible if there's a storm happening. You don't want to be the one running around causing extra hysteria. You want to be realistic and rational and making everyone else feel more comfortable with the situation, because all of us can do as much as we possibly can, but we don't want to make the situation any worse. So be proud of yourself and how you do that.
Okay, so just putting that into a form that someone can go and kind of put into their own brain. Do you think it's helpful if they just kind of have a self-talk with themselves? They meditate on that idea, they write it down, they kind of get some imagery going about how that should look for them coming out of this period. What would be your preferred method for athletes?
I think I'd like to write it down. You could almost do it backwards. So you could sort of say, write down the question, what would I be proud of in this situation? And would say, when you say constantly speaking negatively and worrying, would I be proud of that? No, I wouldn't be proud of that. But would I, you could create the values for how you want to live in this time backwards. And just ask yourself, I can't tell you what values you're going to need to use. Like, I think it's up to you as the athlete to create the value or to clarify the values that you want to live by. So I think writing it down and then living towards, these aren't things that you achieve, but they're things that you live towards every day. So do it, like write down 5 to 10 things in a notebook that you're going to okay, this is how I'm going to operate in this time.
Great. All right. So my little tip and strategy for dealing with this is I want athletes to create their own inner world and have a kind of like a bubble around them with this stuff. So I want athletes to be aware of the big picture, obviously, and you have to do that if you're traveling. I mean, you've got to do isolation periods and stuff like that. So obviously be aware of the bigger picture, but don't have your head glued to social media all day long looking for the latest and scariest update. You want to create a bubble around yourself where you're still a functioning athlete. You want to see yourself as a functioning athlete. And the practical tip I've got for you on that is just, you still got to be a goal setter. So making sure that you've got some things that you're looking to achieve each day, each week, and you're working towards stuff in a meaningful way. That's going to create that bubble around you, which is like, hey, I haven't dropped the ball here, And if you do feel like you're overwhelmed with emotion, you're probably better off just having a nominated period of rest or vacation, holiday, whatever you want to call it. Maybe you do that for 2 or 3 days and then you're into it. You're back into athlete mode, So that would be my tip takeaway for that.
Yeah. We can still be working towards goals. We can still be productive athletes even in this time, basically.
Yeah, still set goals, make them meaningful, create a force field around yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we want to have.
Work towards that as your compass, I think you might really surprise yourself at what you find out, what you learn, what you discover about, like how you're changing your mindset and thinking and stuff like that. There's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. Well, peoples, thank you for listening as always. We are getting better on our YouTube quest, so look forward to more chats and maybe even some comments from people. This is a very interesting time. Keep your heads on out there in a weird, crazy world. Keep it real, and thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.